The first thing I noticed was the coffee machine. It blinked ready like a smug accomplice. She always set it up the night before, half a ritual, half a kindness. And there it was, loyal and clueless. Meanwhile, the bed was still warm on one side, as if her absence hadn't quite caught up with physics. I called her name. Twice. Once with the expectation she was in the bathroom, brushing her teeth. Once more, quieter, as if speaking softer might summon a different truth. Nothing. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and a bird throwing a tantrum outside. Lena had always been the kind of woman who left little notes. Pick up milk, don't forget vet at 4, or once, married you for your shoulders. Please don't get fat. It was her way, equal parts command and affection. So when there was no note on the fridge that morning, I knew something was off. And yet, my brain clung to excuses like a drowning man to driftwood. I went looking. Kitchen, bathroom, closet. Her suitcase was gone. Not all her clothes, just the essentials. Jeans, black dresses, the shoes she used for walking forever. Toothbrush gone, but her brush still on the sink. Her passport folder missing from the drawer. That one made me sit down. There was no blood, no broken glass, no sign of a struggle. Just absence, packaged neatly and left like a ticking bomb. I tried her phone. Straight to voicemail. Tried her sister. I haven't talked to her in weeks, Nina said, voice heavy with the kind of worry that suggests a history of cleanup duty. Maybe she just needed space? I almost laughed. Maybe the son had taken a day off too. That first week passed like a fever dream. Work emails unanswered. Food untouched. I left the porch light on every night like some stubborn romantic from a bad paperback, hoping she'd walk up the driveway and say, "Sorry, I panicked." But the only thing that came back was a raccoon, and it didn't explain itself either. I filed a missing person report on day 8. The officer, a heavy-set man with tired eyes, asked if there had been any fights. I said no. Asked about money troubles. I shrugged. Asked if she'd ever mentioned leaving. Only once, I said, but she was laughing when she said it. The truth is, Lena had always seemed like the kind of woman who might evaporate. She had that air, unrooted, distracted, always looking slightly past you. But she also had a way of convincing you she'd stay, that you were the only harbor she'd ever docked in willingly. By week 3, sympathy curdled into suggestion. Maybe she met someone, my friend Pete offered, eyes down, as if ashamed of his own theory. You ever check her socials? She hated social media, I muttered, but I checked anyway. Nothing. A dusty Facebook account, a dormant Instagram, a Twitter last used to complain about airline food 3 years prior. It was as if she'd been erased with surgical precision. I went to a private investigator. Cost me nearly $5,000 before I gave up. She could be anywhere, he said. Or nowhere. The weirdest part? No charges on our shared account after she left. She withdrew $500 in cash from an ATM near the gas station and disappeared into static. I watched the grainy footage, her in a hoodie, sunglasses, a backpack, like a teenager fleeing a house fire. And then time started doing what it does best, layering days over the wound like dust. The seasons changed. I moved apartments. The porch light was replaced with a motion detector. Her books stayed in boxes. I couldn't bear to open them. They felt like traps. I told myself stories. Maybe she had cancer and didn't want me to watch her die. Maybe she was running from something bigger than us, gambling, debt, something I'd never noticed. Maybe I was just a placeholder, a warm bed until the real life began. I rehearsed these fictions like a script, each more implausible than the last, but all better than the void of not knowing. And then one morning, 10 years and 3 cities later, I saw her. No warning, no build-up, just Lena at a Sunday farmer's market, holding a small child and laughing like the world hadn't cracked open a decade ago. It took me a full minute to recognize her. Not because she looked different, she didn't. Lena still had the same sharp, intelligent eyes, the same half-smile like she was in on a joke you'd never be told. But seeing her in daylight, after 10 years of mental autopsies and half-buried grief, it felt like spotting a ghost ordering a croissant. She stood in front of a honey stand, holding a jar up to the sun, her daughter, or someone's daughter, tugging at her sleeve. I froze behind a stall of overpriced heirloom tomatoes, half expecting her to vanish if I blinked. Instead, she turned and looked straight at me. Her expression didn't change. No gasp, no stumble, just a long, measured look, like she was checking a name off a list. Then she smiled, that same old Lena smile, and walked over. "Hey, Will," she said, like we'd seen each other last week. "You look good." I didn't answer. Couldn't. My throat was dry, and the buzzing in my ears drowned out any coherent thought. The child, girl, maybe 5 or 6, was busy picking petals off a daisy, utterly uninterested in the moment her mother re-entered a life she'd detonated. "Lena," I finally croaked. "You're alive." She laughed softly. "I am. I know I should have reached out. There's so much to explain." I stared at her. The crowd moved around us in a blur, families with strollers, college kids with canvas bags, retirees tasting free cheese. The world hadn't stopped. Only I had. "Explain," I said. "You left. No call. No note. Nothing. I thought you were dead. Or kidnapped. Or worse." She glanced at the child and knelt beside her, whispering something before handing her $1 and pointing to the lemonade stand. The girl skipped off. "Her name is Eve," Lena said. "She's 7. Almost 8. I did the math. Failed. Tried again. My stomach flipped. "She's not." "No," she said quickly. "Not yours." The ground didn't open up, but it wanted to. I felt the edges cracking. "I'm sorry, Will," she continued. "I don't expect forgiveness. But you deserved answers." I looked at her then, really looked. She wasn't hiding. Not anymore. Her eyes had lines now, her hands a bit more freckled. But her posture was steady, like someone who'd made peace with their decisions. "Start talking," I said. She nodded. "Let's walk." We strolled in silence toward the park's edge, Eve trailing ahead with her lemonade like it held state secrets. Lena kept her voice low. "I left because I was pregnant," she said. I stopped. "Not yours, obviously." I found out 2 weeks before I disappeared. I was terrified. It wasn't planned. It wasn't clean. My chest burned. "Who?" She hesitated. "Someone I worked with. Brief thing. A mistake. I ended it immediately, but then I missed a period in." "You could have told me." "I couldn't." Her voice cracked. "I knew you'd try to fix it. That you'd stay, raise her, pretend it didn't kill you. And I couldn't let you do that. I knew you, Will. You would have made it your responsibility. Because I loved you," I said, louder than I meant. "I know. That's why I left." It was the most backwards, infuriating logic I'd ever heard, but it was Lena logic. The woman who once broke up a friend's engagement because she couldn't let her marry a man who pronounced quinoa wrong. "So you ran." "I disappeared," she said. "Changed cities. Changed names. Got a job teaching art to kids. Raised Eve alone. I've told her about you. But there was once a man who taught me how to laugh with my mouth open. That he was kind. And that he loved me, even when I didn't deserve it." The tears came then, hot and unwanted. I wiped them away quickly. She didn't. "I was broken," she said. "I didn't know how to ask for help without destroying you." We reached a bench. Saturday. Eve climbed a nearby tree, humming. "And now?" I asked. "Why now?" She took a breath. "Because you've started asking. About family. Fathers. And I realized I couldn't keep hiding. I owed it to both of you. I didn't come here to fix anything. Just to show you that I lived. That it wasn't about you. It was about my fear." I laughed bitterly. 10 years of silence for your fear." She nodded. "I'll carry that. But if you ever want to talk or meet her." "I'm here." She stood up, walked back toward her daughter, left me there, staring at the spot where my old life had just resurfaced, smiled, and walked away again. I didn't call her for 6 weeks. It wasn't a decision. I just couldn't. Every time I reached for the phone, my hand hovered like it was over a self-destruct button. I watched a dozen sunrises from my window, each one making the world look deceptively orderly, like time healed anything other than paper cuts. Instead, I lived with it. Her reappearance left a smudge on every corner of my routine. Morning coffee tasted like ash. My walks through the park came with the phantom sound of a child's laughter that wasn't mine. Every honey jar, every dark-haired girl, every damn sunflower. Suddenly, they were all traitors. Pete, who'd stuck around despite my past decade of absence from social life, said what friends say in moments like this. "Well, she's not dead," he offered over beers one night. "That's a start." "I'm not sure that's better," I said. "Dead comes with closure." He nodded, like he understood. Maybe he did. Most people have ghosts. Mine just came back wearing jeans and offering parenting plans. The thing is, I wanted to hate her. That would have been easier. But all I felt was tired. She hadn't just left me, she had amputated a version of myself. The one that made plans, believed in fairness, measured time in milestones like anniversaries and Christmas cards. That guy died the day Lena disappeared. So I took inventory of who I'd become. A middle-aged man with 2 failed relationships after Lena, both ended by my inability to fully explain why I was emotionally Tupperwared. A shelf of cookbooks I never opened. A drawer full of her postcards from that trip to Florence we never took. One night, I dug out an old photo album. It had dust on it so thick it coughed when I opened it. There we were, Lena on a swing in Golden Gate Park, laughing so hard her head tilted back, hair wild like a protest banner. Me beside her, mid-sentence, probably teasing her about the pigeons. There was no sign of secrets. No shadow hinting she'd one day walk out and raise another man's child alone. Eventually, I called. She picked up on the second ring. That detail burned. "Will?" she said, not a question, not a surprise. "I want to meet her," I said. "Eve, I want to meet her." Lena didn't answer for a few beats. "Okay, how about this Sunday? There's a story time at the library. It's public, casual. No pressure. Public. Smart. Somewhere neutral. Somewhere a meltdown wouldn't echo as much." I wore a collared shirt and brought a copy of Harold and the Purple Crayon. I'd loved it as a kid. Thought maybe that counted for something. Eve was more serious than I expected. Same sharp eyes, same furrowed brow as Lena. She sized me up like a chess player facing a new opponent. "This is Will," Lena said, crouching beside her. "He's an old friend of Mommy's." I smiled. "Hi, Eve. I brought a book." She tilted her head. "Did you bring a snack?" I laughed. "I didn't. Total rookie mistake." That broke the ice. She let me sit beside her during story time. Halfway through, she leaned her head against my arm, absent-mindedly, the way children do when they forget to be guarded. It nearly leveled me. After, we got ice cream. She picked mint chocolate chip, then changed her mind after one lick and took mine instead. "Do you have kids?" she asked, mouth full. "No," I said. "Not yet." She nodded thoughtfully. "You'd be good at it." The words came from her like prophecy. Lena met my eyes across the table. There was warmth there, and a question. But I didn't answer it. Couldn't. Not yet. I saw them every other weekend after that. We went to museums, aquariums, a pumpkin patch where Eve insisted on finding the saddest-looking pumpkin in the field and naming it George. She made me carry George for 3 hours. Each visit etched something new into me. Not healing, not quite, but rebuilding. Eve talked constantly, asked impossible questions about planets and death and why cats hate baths. I answered what I could, lied when I had to, and Lena watched. Always nearby, always letting it unfold. She didn't rush me, didn't push for apologies or declarations. She just existed. One Sunday, Eve handed me a drawing. Crayon on printer paper. It was a stick figure trio, one tall with glasses, one with curly hair, and one tiny one in a purple dress. "That's you," she said, pointing. "And Mommy. And me." There was a red heart floating above them. I took it home and pinned it to the fridge, right above the coffee machine. It blinked ready the next morning, just like it had 10 years ago. This time, I smiled back. I kept thinking the hardest part would be the first meeting. Turns out, it wasn't. The hardest part came after the 3rd or 4th visit, when the questions started to feel like they belonged to something permanent. Something dangerous. What are we? Not Eve. She was simple, transparent in a way only kids can be. She wanted to know what kind of clouds made rain, why turtles didn't get squished, and if you could marry a dog if you both really liked snacks. Lena, on the other hand, Lena asked nothing, and that silence had a weight. We'd grown into this strange rhythm, scheduled Sunday outings, text messages about sunscreen and weather, the occasional call when Eve had a stomach bug and missed our day. Always polite, always present, but never personal. Not about us. Until the day she invited me for dinner. Not a picnic. Not the park. Her home. "I figured it was time," she said. "You've earned it." Her words hit like a compliment and a warning. I brought wine. A stupid instinct, but one I couldn't shake. The bottle sat awkwardly on the counter, untouched. Lena made pasta. Something simple. The house smelled like basil and lavender. Faint, clean, lived in. Eve gave me a tour of her room. Pink walls, stuffed animals, a globe with tiny stickers on the country she wanted to visit. "France," she said, "because of the bread." Solid logic, I told her. Lena was quiet during dinner. Not cold, just watching, measuring. I recognized it. It was the same look she gave me when we first met, back when we both pretended we weren't auditioning for something real. After Eve went to bed, we sat on the porch. The air was thick with July. A moth threw itself at the porch light over and over again, determined to burn. She's happy, I said. She is. You're a good mom. Lena smiled. I had to be. There was no backup plan. We fell into a silence so familiar it frightened me. Not the silence of strangers, but the one you earn. The one that comes after the noise is done stripping things down to their ugly truths. I never hated you, I said. I know. I wanted to. I know that too. She turned to me then, legs tucked under her, the soft creak of the chair the only sound between us. You should know something, she said. About her father. My body went still. I don't talk to him, she continued. Never did. He knew I was pregnant. Offered money. I refused. I didn't want that kind of rope tied to my child. Why are you telling me this now? Because you're here. And I don't know what that means. But if you're going to stay, you deserve the whole picture. I looked at her, and for the first time since she vanished, I didn't see the girl who left. I saw the woman who had clawed her way through choices. Bad, necessary, and everything in between. I don't know if I can forgive, I said. Not just you. Myself. For still wanting to. She reached out and took my hand. Not romantically. Just steadying. Like an old war buddy, sharing a foxhole. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I only want honesty. Whatever shape that takes. We sat like that for a long time. No declarations. No apologies. Just hands, and sweat, and porch lights flickering against the dark. The next few weeks passed like soft rain. Unexpectedly gentle. Eve started asking deeper questions. Why don't you live with us? Did you love Mommy before I was born? If I love too Dad someday, is that okay? I answered as best I could. Stumbled more than once. Lena invited me to Eve's school recital. I sat in the second row, flowers in my lap, and watched her stumble through a xylophone piece with the focus of a brain surgeon. Afterward, she ran into my arms and said, Did you hear me mess up? Of course, I said. It was perfect. Then one night, the line was crossed. Not by force. Not by design. Just two people, tired of fences, leaning too far over. We kissed. It was hesitant, fragile, familiar in all the wrong and right ways. Her hands on my face like they were trying to remember the topography of someone who no longer looked 29. After, she rested her forehead against mine and whispered, This doesn't fix anything. No, I said, but it means something. I didn't sleep over. We weren't there yet. Or maybe we were, and I was afraid of waking up in another empty house. The next morning, she texted me a photo. Eve holding a pancake shaped vaguely like a dinosaur. Under it, the caption, she named him Carl. He's extinct. I laughed harder than I had in years. Still, the kiss haunted me. It wasn't about lust. It was about gravity. About two people who had tried and failed to orbit other stars. We didn't talk about it again. Not directly. But she stopped locking the door when I left. Fall came in quietly, like someone sneaking into a funeral late. The trees on Lena's street turned brittle and spectacular, and Eve insisted we collect the reddest leaves every Sunday, pressing them between wax paper and calling them memory slices. I didn't correct her. Didn't have the heart. She was right, in her own strange way. Some things deserved preserving exactly as they were. We never defined what was happening. Lena and I mean. We moved through those weeks like people who knew a storm was coming and just wanted one more day at the beach. One more Sunday morning. One more cup of coffee brewed too strong. Until the letter came. It arrived folded, creased like guilt, in an envelope addressed only to me. I found it tucked under my windshield wiper after work. No return address. No name. Just a single page. I never told you everything. The handwriting was Lena's. Precise. Careful. The kind used when one is afraid of what the truth might do if it were spoken aloud. I told you Eve's father knew. That he offered money and disappeared. That part was true. What I didn't tell you, what I couldn't, is that he didn't disappear on his own. I made him. When I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. I told him. He laughed. Said it wasn't his problem. And I said things. Threatened to go public. Not with a lawsuit. With something bigger. He was married. With children. A reputation. He begged me to stay quiet. Offered me more than money. And I took it. Not for me. For her. I made him sign a document. His lawyer drew it up. He would walk away completely. No contact. No rights. And in return, I would keep my mouth shut. He kept his word. And I kept mine. I never saw him again. But I lied to you. I let you believe I was noble. That I walked away from shame, not negotiation. that I was a victim of bad timing, not the architect of my own cowardice. I'm sorry, Will. If you hate me now, I'll understand. But I couldn't move forward with you, without showing you the sharp end of the mercy I asked you to believe in. I folded the letter neatly, put it in a drawer with the expired warranties and old birthday cards. Then I sat on the floor of my apartment for an hour and did nothing. Just stared at the ceiling and wondered if it would collapse, if maybe it should. I didn't speak to her for 3 days. Not out of anger, but because I didn't know what to say. Every version of myself had collided in that moment, the man who loved her, the man who lost her, and the man who still wanted her despite the architecture of her betrayal. On the 4th day, I went at her door. She opened it without a word, stepped aside, and let me in. Eve was asleep. A single night light cast cartoonish shadows on the hallway walls. She was scared of the thunder, Lena said quietly. I let her sleep in my bed. I nodded. The silence sat with us for a while. Then I spoke. You gave him a way out. I gave him a reason to stay gone. You negotiated away your pain. She shook her head. I delayed it. I thought protecting her meant hiding the wreckage. Turns out it just moved the debris somewhere else. And us. Lena looked at me, and I saw it, what she had become. Not a villain, not a victim, just a person. Flawed, flayed open, still standing. I want you here, she said. But not because I deserve you. Because you choose it. That night, we didn't touch. We didn't kiss. We just sat on the couch, shoulders grazing, a single shared blanket between us. And in that fragile quiet, I made the decision that would write the final line of our fractured, unfinished story. I stayed. Not as a lover. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But as something else. As a man who understood that some kinds of broken didn't need fixing. They just needed witnesses.